Adela, welcome back to part 2 of our
Thank you.
trauma episode.
Good to be
And
here.
as usual, it's always lovely to have you on the show. And in part 1, we went through trauma, understanding it from a basic foundation and the misconceptions around it, the impact on the physiological and psychological part of our being. And we broke down just in 4 parts. You broke to us how we need to identify certain things that we do as adults that may impact a child before birth and after birth. So to continue with this conversation, Adela, you are a trauma-informed practitioner, if I may put it like that.
Yeah.
To say trauma-informed, what does it really mean? Or what for viewers' second understanding, what would you mean by saying I am trauma-informed or trauma-informed practice? Yeah.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions flying around about being trauma-informed.
Yeah.
But being fully trauma-informed, in certainly from my experience, means being able to, as I outlined previously, being able to understand that the child in front of you has had all those experiences that were negative or harmful or led them to have little trust in the world.
Yeah.
And so what happens when we are in that kind of situation and we're not actually being cared for or provided with what we need for survival, our brains flip into survival mode.
Okay.
Because if you, again, I mean, I could tell a story, but I won't tell the whole story. But I remember when I worked in child protection, we apprehended a baby who was very unsafe, in a very neglectful but not harmful, as in the parents loved that baby, but they didn't know how to love him.
Okay.
So they couldn't meet his needs. And, you know, they were using drugs of various kinds on a regular basis. So that infant clearly must have spent hours crying because we had that infant in a basket in our office while we were waiting to find a foster carer. And he was asleep, but then woke and made her cry. I won't even attempt to do it, but we were profoundly devastated when we heard him. But he sounded like a little lamb bleating. It was like he'd given up.
That was horrific, yeah.
It was. We all sat around the table and had tears coming out of our eyes because he was only about 6 weeks old, and in 6 weeks he had already developed, obviously, a high degree of fear and a sense of not being cared for.
Yes.
And yet, of course, he still had needs. So he would cry, but in a cry that demonstrated to us that he had somewhat given up. And that's just one example, but we see many, many examples of how neglect, not intentional neglect, and again, very important to say that various different circumstances lead to the types of experience that children with complex trauma have, but the overarching impact of that experience is one of lack of survival, you know, lack of care, lack of human attachment, and no sense of safety. So these children are flicking, if you like, into survival mode because that's all they can do. It's not a decision. It just happens because we are human beings, and that's our response in that circumstance.
And you get like I get the sense that you see your story brings out two sides. You know, it brings the impact that the trauma has on the young person or the child, and how it manifests into adulthood. When you talk about this infant and you talk about the parents who just never knew how to do it, when you look at these two different sides, it's more about the same experience in different, different sides of the world.
Absolutely.
And eventually this child might not know how to parent in future.
They won't.
Yeah. So it kind of brings, and it's an observation I've been, and I still believe in this, Adela, that one of the most important things in our modern society today is to have trauma-informed practices in institutions, in organizations,
Absolutely.
to individuals, to create a more understanding perspective of ourselves.
Yes.
Because if we do understand ourselves, like someone like me, when I first got into the industry, I never really understood some of these things because I've been brought up with certain values and beliefs. But at the same time, even with the education I had just a surface understanding of what this is all about. I used to criticize so many things until I saw the kind of work you do, Adela.
Yeah.
In which, for our viewers, Adela has done good work in developing two large state initiatives that are therapeutically interventive, or if I may call it, with therapeutic intervention.
Yeah, so there was Take Two, which is an intensive outreach service for children who are clients of child protection. And that is very thoroughly trauma-informed. I mean, that's been going for 23 years now.
And Adela, what do you feel, like I've just said, okay, based on my observation, based on my take on trauma-informed practices, but you having been there for all those years, having developed such initiatives that are impactful for 18 and 23 years, right? What's your take on the need for us to implement these strategies moving forward?
Oh, we must, I do push constantly, but what we must do is make all of our services for out-of-home care trauma-informed.
Yeah.
And by that, when I say trauma-informed, I mean not just knowing that those children have experienced trauma, knowing how it's impacted on them, and therefore using those 4 impacts on them to fashion the response and the intervention. Because when you do that, it works. Like I sit here and say, we've done this with 2 services, so Take Two, which is not a residential setting, it's an outreach service to work with children 0 to 18 who are not necessarily only in out-of-home care, but in child protection in general, and Hurstbridge Farm, and, we had 12 other pilots. But at Hurstbridge Farm, we fashioned the intervention. And we didn't get everything right at the start because you never do.
Yeah.
We worked out what worked and what didn't work. And we saw 8 extremely troubled young people who was they were our first intake.
Yes.
Really blossom and grow, and to varying degrees, of course, because their trauma was varied in terms of the way they experienced it. But what I will say, and something I'd love to be able to do, and I keep thinking, while I've got breath in me, I might have to somehow find the money for it. I'd love to do a 20-year follow-up on those young people formally, because they are still in touch with us. There is basically not one young person who's now an adult.
Yes.
They're all, somewhere in their 30s, late 20s or 30s.
Wow.
Every one of those keep in touch with at least one
Yeah.
of the staff who were there
Wow.
when they were there. Like, not all the time, but fairly regularly. I just had a phone call on the way here today
Yeah. Wow.
from one of those young people telling me that they'd been accepted for a particular course at Swinburne Uni and
That's
saying, I
nice.
feel nervous but excited. And I was, I just responded
Which
and
is a
said,
big achievement,
yeah.
People don't see the impact of this, what you're telling today, until you start to practice it. And every time, Adela, I look back at myself and I try to break down the process in which it has taken me to understand. And I meet people even as I work. And I found that I handle things much better as an individual, because this kind of approach has really helped me as a person to be able to deliver in my work and also deliver as an individual. And I see the good side of it. If you just have an open mind and embrace that there are different strategies, everyone wants to embrace the modern kind of change. There's change right now. And as we continue, our children are changing as well. The world is changing. But if we stick to the traditional ways, I believe this might not actually pan out as it should be. And that there's a lot of challenges that come with what you're doing, Adela.
There
I
are.
would just love to hear a bit of these challenges that you experienced as you implement this.
Well, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is that our systems are actually not designed by clinicians. They're designed more by bureaucrats.
Okay.
There is sometimes the opportunity for input, but mainly it's the bureaucrats, because the bureaucrats control the dollars. It's mainly the bureaucrats who say, well, you can't do this or you can't do that.
Yeah.
Now, the bureaucrats at the time when Take Two was designed and implemented believed in what we were doing.
Yes.
The bureaucrats who stood behind me when I was writing that submission and the bureaucrats who stood behind us when I was writing the proposal for Hurstbridge Farm, they saw what it meant to be trauma-informed.
Yeah.
But because governments are politically driven, then what often can happen is that the government changes, as was the case, and an incoming government does not have the same desire to or understanding of what's required. And it sort of flicks back to the dollars. If the first priority is dollars, it's never going to be able to operate effectively.
Yes.
The first consideration must be what is needed, and then you look at the dollars, and then you see, as we did with Hurstbridge, what can you do to maintain the efficacy by staying close to the understanding of trauma, as well as, where can you cut, a little bit off the corners that won't make a difference to save some of the dollars. But I don't see that thinking. I see the thinking primarily being about dollars. And I understand, budgets are budgets. But somewhere down the track, those kids, if they don't actually get a trauma-informed response, they're going to actually end up somewhere else down the track in a equally expensive
And the way you said
service.
at the beginning of the show, in the first phase of the show, when we're talking about trauma, we talk about the children and we see how this kind of complex trauma manifests in these children.
Mm.
And the way you say that we cannot treat these children the same way
No.
as we may treat my child
A
at
healthy
home.
child.
Yeah, a healthy child. And it's fair to say that because I look back and because I was just talking to Bob in one of the previous episodes, and one of the things we were talking about is about education. The importance of driving this thing into education for both the teacher and to support the pupil or the student. So the problem is if we don't bring this to the teachers, because we're finding teachers under tremendous pressure of children passing exams, schools performing. And what this creates is these teachers also have children in other schools going through the same thing. But we are competing, kids are competing amongst each other in a space which is not equal.
And I guess also children who've experienced complex trauma really struggle to regulate themselves in a school environment.
Yes.
Now, often what happens, and I've heard this time and time again, is child comes to school, I might have developed a bit of a program for them.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, keep it calm, do something repetitive, help them to be in the school environment.
Yes.
But of course, you move from that classroom into another classroom and it's all got to be done again.
Yes.
So often people don't see the specificity of what you have to do and the detail of what needs to be done to help a child manage to regulate in a school setting.
Children need safe adults.
They need adults who understand them. And they need, often in a school setting, the reaction to the behaviour of traumatised children is punitive.
Yes.
Now, there is one thing that a traumatised child really does not need, and that is a punitive response.
I was looking at the prevalence, mental health prevalence that we have in Kenya. And when I look at it, there's one of the issues that the adolescents are going through, kids between 10 and 17. I don't know why they put conduct. They use the word conduct. It's that name already is categorizing a child or a young person into a behavior.
Yes. But that goes back, I think, into past times and, some people still hang on to these understandings of a conduct disorder. Now, it's a very big topic area. I'm not going to go there in this discussion.
Fair enough,
But maybe there is, maybe there isn't such a thing as a conduct disorder. I prefer to make sense of those kinds of presentations as trauma-related and generally speaking, and I'll say maybe 9 times or more out of 10, when you track back, there is trauma there. If one tries to react by being punitive, it will actually heighten the response. So it begins to focus on the conduct because people are not understanding what's sitting underneath it. And another very quick example, 10-year-old boy that I was involved with as a consultant. He was starting at a new school. He was actually starting to settle in quite nicely.
Okay.
He was in a relatively stable placement. I had said very clearly to the teacher, please don't do any kind of a star chart or behaviour chart with this boy because it's too cognitive. And when he's under the stress of trying to settle into a new school, he won't have any headspace to do that, nor the capacity to, underpin that headspace. So for some reason, that teacher decided that she wouldn't listen to that. Created a star chart, put it up on the wall, one for each child. It wasn't just for him. But, of course, he couldn't cope with that because it was too punitive, if you like, and too potentially shaming. So this little 10-year-old boy was actually helping one of his classmates, but was talking at a time when he wasn't meant to talk.
Okay.
So the teacher said to him, "Oh, okay, that's today you won't get a star."
Oh, no.
So the little boy leapt up, ripped the chart off the wall, tore it up, ran out of the classroom and climbed up onto the roof of the building next door.
Whoa.
It is quite common for traumatised children to climb onto roofs. And in general, I think it's because of a safety thing. It's like, survival. I'm up here, no one can get me, but it's not logic. No. So he's up there, the fire brigade got called, police got called, ambulance got called. 3 hours later, he was down, and I got to hear about it, and I thought, well, really, that teacher could just have listened.
Yeah.
And understood what I was explaining.
Should have taken a very small, a very few or short seconds, just for that whole scenario not to
have happened at all. And it served nobody's purpose. It served not the school's purpose. Certainly was not good for the little boy who felt shame, and the whole experience was pretty awful for him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, interestingly, the school did persevere, but it could well have been the case that the school said, "Oh, we can't manage him." Thankfully, it wasn't the case,
Adela,
and they didn't do another star chart.
You bring very powerful points there, and you understand very well the need for our children and our young people to be understood. I think it goes all over to parents, because we as parents, we need to bring our children, we need to start by identifying what we are doing.
Yes.
And irrespective of what we have gone through, understand what we are doing from a trauma-informed perspective.
Yes.
And that's why we've broken down today trauma in depth and trying to understand it to a point of the practice itself, being trauma-informed, where you and I are.
Yeah.
And that brings us, unfortunately, I wouldn't like to wrap this up, but I have to wrap it up for now. But we look into it more around family.
Yes. And I think it's important to say, just before we finish, that complex trauma occurs on a continuum.
Okay.
So you may see some children who are not tremendously impacted by it, but somewhat impacted by it. And then, you will see children who have been horrifically impacted by it and who really find it very difficult to function in the world. On that continuum, no matter what, some families might say, "Oh, well, my child's just naughty." Well, yes, children do things that parents say are naughty and they wish they didn't do them. But there's a particular quality to the intensity of the presentation of kids who've experienced complex trauma. And I'll just emphasise that complex trauma is really the kind of trauma that provides the organising environment for the brain. And mainly this occurs because about 90% of the brain's development occurs before the age of 5 or 6.
Yes.
So it's in those first 5-6 years of life that it has its major impact. There are other types of trauma as well, but I'm not going into them because we'd need hours
To go through. Wow, Adela. We wrap up the show, and we thank you as our viewers and listeners for the continuous support. That was Adela Holmes, and she always brings this rich, inspirational information that we need in our homes, we need in our schools. We need to create safety. So take all this that you've learned today and take it out there, share it with everyone you believe needs to be shared with, even those who you think know about it. And that way we can continue to build the Wellness Diary community within our spaces. So we come to the end of the show. We're looking forward to having you and to share with you more insights and information on trauma and how it unravels throughout our lives. So let's believe in the power of belong, believe, become as we subscribe and we join hands together. Thank you for the show, Adela.
Thank you.